At 02:14 local time, a B-2 Spirit stealth bomber was holding steady at 42,000 feet over the Gulf of Oman, 90 minutes into a strike run against a deep underground anti-ship cruise missile depot. Routine, until a yellow diamond blinked onto the mission commander's display. An emitter near the target wasn't in the pre-mission brief. The cockpit went quiet. The mission commander stopped programming aim points. He ran the classification. 2 seconds for the signal match to come back. And those were a long 2 seconds at 42,000 feet, with the autopilot holding course toward a radar that was actively painting the sky. Tor-M1, NATO designation SA-15 Gauntlet, sitting less than 4 miles from the target. The answer came back worse than he wanted and better than he feared. They weren't aborting, but they weren't relaxed anymore either. The question now was whether the system could reach them at altitude, and that answer was going to determine whether the next 7 minutes were uncomfortable or unsurvivable. If you look here at the B-2's cockpit displays, you'll see what that danger image actually shows, a real-time map of every radar emission the aircraft's sensors can detect, generated by Defensive Management System, or DMS. The antennas hidden along the wing edges passively listen across multiple frequency bands, detecting and geolocating emitters at hundreds of miles without transmitting a signal back. Think of it as a security camera feed showing every searchlight beam in a dark city. The crew's job is to walk between them, and one of those searchlights just went up 4 miles from their aim point, and they needed to know if it could reach them. If you look here at the Tor-M1, you'll see why the mission commander stopped programming aim points. The Tor packs a search radar, fire control radar, and 8 vertical launch missiles onto a single track chassis, completely self-contained, no network required. Russia sold Iran 29 of these to guard exactly this kind of facility. 29 of the best short-range air defense systems money can buy. Each one tracks 48 targets and engages 2 simultaneously. Its missiles fly on command guidance. A fire control radar tracks both the aircraft and the missile at the same time, then transmits real-time correction signals to steer the warhead onto the intercept course. The system aims the missile in flight, all the way to impact at over Mach 2. But the mission commander ran the ceiling math. The Tor's missiles max out at 6 kilometers. The B-2 cruises at 42,000 feet, 12.8 kilometers. Terrifying bark, but the leash only reaches the front porch, and the B-2 is across the street. He confirmed the missile couldn't touch them and went back to the aim points. 7 minutes to release. 2 seconds for the classification. A novel emitter, 4 miles from the target, not in the brief. The mission commander ran the threat map, confirmed the ceiling, made the call, and went back to programming aim points, all before the autopilot needed to make a single correction. That's not luck. That's a crew that trained for the moment when the answer comes back worse than you wanted and you have to work the problem anyway. 4 miles below, the Tor-M1 operator was reaching the same conclusion from the other side. He'd been watching his scope paint empty sky for 20 minutes. Nothing at any altitude, any bearing, any velocity his radar could resolve. On day 1, that would have meant the sky was clear. On day 17, with American aircraft overhead around the clock, it meant one thing: stealth. Something was up there that his radar couldn't see. His commanding officer wanted this facility guarded. The operator couldn't guard anything against a target his radar couldn't paint. So he switched off the transmission and reached for the backup, the system his Russian instructors told him he'd probably never need. Inside the B-2, the Tor's radar went silent and the danger image cleared. The mission commander's hands paused on the targeting display. Relief. The operator had probably shut down to avoid attracting a harm, a high-speed anti-radiation missile. The American weapon specifically designed to ride a radar beam back to its source and destroy the antenna. That instinct was dangerously wrong. If you look here at the front of the Tor-M1's turret, next to the engagement radar, you'll notice an aperture most people overlook: the 9SH319 electro-optical tracking system. Every Tor-M1 carries this passive optical tracker for situations where radar fails, heavy jamming, or targets too stealthy for radio waves. The operator switches to thermal imaging without emitting a single signal. Nothing radiates, nothing transmits. The DMS is completely blind. Iran pushed this further with their DefSul variant. replacing the original daytime-only camera with a thermal imager that works around the clock. The guard dog didn't leave. It stopped barking and opened its eyes. The B-2 crew had no way to know the switch happened. The DMS showed clear sky, 6 minutes to release. The mission commander went back to programming aim points. On the ground, the Tor operator settled behind the thermal display and started scanning. At minus 55 degrees Celsius, the upper atmosphere is a frozen black canvas. Any heat source stands out like a lit match in a dark room. The B-2's 4 F-118 engines pushed exhaust through mixing nozzles designed to cool the thermal signature, and against most backgrounds, those nozzles do their job. But if atmospheric conditions produce an even partial contrail, warm water vapor and ice crystals trailing behind the aircraft, a thermal camera sees that heat streak instantly, like a boat's wake on a glass-calm lake. You can't see the hull, but the trail it left is unmistakable, invisible to the naked eye, unmistakable in the thermal band. And here's the part that makes night missions worse, not better. Solar energy during the day floods the upper atmosphere with infrared clutter that washes out faint signatures. After dark, that clutter disappears. Thermal contrast increases at night. Tonight's contrail conditions were marginal. The Tor operators swept the thermal display west to east, then east to west, scanning the sky above the facility in methodical arcs. 12-degree elevation increments, 3-second dwells. Textbook search pattern, exactly what the Russian training manual prescribed. On the third sweep, he found something. A faint thermal streak at high altitude drifting east. Intermittent, barely above the noise floor. Not a definitive track, but not nothing. The operator faced a choice. His missile couldn't reach 42,000 feet. His digital data links to the air defense network were destroyed. 17 days of seed missions, suppression of enemy air defenses, had seen to that. But he had a radio. And 30 kilometers northeast, an SA-6 battery that had relocated twice during the war was sitting in a valley with missiles that could reach 24 kilometers altitude. If you look here at the SA-6 Gainful, a full designation 2K-12 Cub, a system that has been destroying aircraft since Vietnam. 3 radar-guided missiles per launcher, each closing at Mach 2.8 with a 56-kilogram continuous rod fragmentation warhead. It doesn't need to hit the aircraft directly, just detonate within its effective radius. Semi-active radar homing. The battery's fire control radar illuminates the target and the missile rides the reflected energy to impact. Think of it as a flashlight and a mirror. The radar points the beam, the missile follows the reflection. Horizontal range of 42 kilometers, roughly New York to the Connecticut line, and a ceiling to match, 3 times the altitude the Tor can reach. The SA-6 crew had been dark for 3 days, waiting for something worth the exposure. The Tor operator keyed his radio and transmitted a bearing, an estimated altitude, and a heading. Inside the B-2, the DMS registered nothing. The voice transmission was below the system's frequency threshold. The DMS listens for radar emissions, not radio chatter. The mission commander continued programming aim points in perfect silence, 5 minutes from release, with absolutely no indication that the Iranians had just passed his approximate position to a missile battery with 3 times the Tor's reach. The SA-6 operators received the call. They had a bearing and an estimated altitude. Not enough for a firing solution, but enough to know where to look. They powered up their search radar in short 5-second bursts, scanning a narrow sector of sky, trying to get a return on something the Tor's thermal camera said was there, but their radar might not see. 5-second bursts, on, sweep, off. Designed to minimize exposure to American anti-radiation missiles. The kind of disciplined emissions management that keeps a SAM battery operational on day 17. The B-2's DMS caught the first burst, a new yellow diamond 30 kilometers northwest. The mission's commander eyes snapped to it. SA-6 search radar, brief pulse, then gone. Another 5 seconds later, pulse, gone. The system was probing, looking for something specific rather than conducting a routine search. That pattern meant one thing. Someone had told them where to look. The mission commander felt the picture shift. A Tor he could no longer see had gone passive. An SA-6 30 kilometers out was probing his corridor in short bursts, guided by intelligence from somewhere. The DMS couldn't tell him what connected those 2 facts, but the timeline hadn't changed. 4 minutes to release, and the IRGC flush clock was running. If the IRGC had spotted the KC-135 tanker dropping off commercial flight tracking 24 minutes ago and ordered a flush, Those mobile Noor launchers have been rolling for 9 minutes. They need 15. If you look here at the pre-strike satellite imagery, you'll see tunnel access roads leading to reinforced doors in the hillside. The Noor, derived from the Chinese Charlie 802, skims the water at 20 to 30 meters altitude with active radar homing and 120-kilometer range. The Gator pushes past 200, a jack-in-the-box with a cruise missile. Pop out, shoot, disappear. Every minute the mission commander spends over this airspace is a minute closer to bombing an empty building. The SA-6 pulsed again, another 5-second burst, same sector. The B-2 stealth was doing its job. The SA-6 wasn't getting a return clean enough to track. But each burst was a gamble for both sides. The SA-6 crew was betting that 5 seconds wasn't long enough for an American harm to lock their position. The B-2 crew was betting that the SA-6's radar couldn't resolve a marble-sized cross-section at 30 kilometers. Both bets were probably right. Probably is not a word B-2 crews enjoy. 3 minutes to release. The mission commander made the call. The SA-6 couldn't see him, and the Tor couldn't shoot him, and the clock was running out on the target. He locked the final aim point and took his hands off the targeting display. From here, the autopilot flew and the mission commander managed everything else. In 90 seconds, the bomb bay doors would open, and every problem he'd been managing for the last 5 minutes would converge on 12 seconds of exposure. If you look here, at the underside of the B-2, you'll see 2 weapons bays sealed by doors that maintain the stealth profile. Everything about this bomber, the flying wing shape, the radar-absorbent coatings, the 172-foot wingspan with 0 vertical surfaces, exists to keep the radar cross-section at the size of a marble. When those doors swing open, the internal cavity acts like a corner reflector, bouncing radar energy straight back to the transmitter. The cross-section jumps 100 times. The marble becomes a barn. That exposure window runs 12 seconds, and right now 3 different systems might be looking. The mission commander's hands moved to the weapons panel, and the Link 16 display refreshed a new track. Link 16 is the encrypted tactical data network that gives every American aircraft and warship in theater the same real-time picture. Every missile, every radar, every aircraft. Think of it as the most classified HOA group chat in existence. Every ship and plane in theater posts what they see in real time, and nobody misses a thing. The B-2 reads every message. It just never replies. Skywatch, Skywatch, ballistic launch, Western Iran, trajectory correlates Al Dhafra, BMD track 771. The KAOC controller's voice carried the flat urgency of someone who's been calling these launches for 17 days. KAOC, Combined Air Operations Center, is the air war brain running every American aircraft in theater from a hardened facility in Qatar. 60 miles south, an Aegis destroyer shifted into ballistic missile defense mode. An SM-3 Standard missile punched out of the vertical launch cells and climbed northwest, while Spy Radar, the most powerful naval search radar in existence, shifted to maximum power. If you look here at the Spy 1D array on the Aegis destroyer, this system tracks hundreds of contacts simultaneously and detects objects the size of a baseball at over 100 miles. During BMD, the radar goes to full output. Tighter beam, lower thresholds, everything more sensitive. Standard procedures scan surrounding airspace for follow-on cruise missile threats, because Iran has been salvo-launching ballistic missiles with cruise missile chasers for 2 weeks. The B-2 is about to open its bomb bay doors, multiplying its radar signature by 100, directly inside that Spy Radar sweep during a live engagement. The return appears on the Tactical Action Officer's display as an unidentified contact without IFF, identification friend or foe. The transponder handshake that tells a warship whether the radar return is friendly, right alongside tracks from actual inbound weapons. The restricted fire area says don't engage in that corridor, but the RFA was built for a routine stealth transit, not for simultaneous BMD with the combat system flagging every new return. The mission commander did the math on 2 clocks. Spy's secondary surveillance swept through its sector every 16 seconds. He'd been counting since the Gulf of Orman. The doors need 12 seconds. 4-second margin if he times the opening to start the instant Spy's beam rotates past. Here's the second clock. If the IRGC flush order went out when the tanker dropped off tracking, Those launchers have been rolling for 28 minutes. They need 15. Every second he spends timing spy sweeps is a second closer to bombing empty concrete. And there's the SA-6, still pulsing in 5-second bursts 30 kilometers northwest. If the doors open and the RCS jumps 100 times, those 5-second sweeps don't need to find a marble anymore. They'll be looking for a barn. 3 clocks, 1 window. He watched Spy's beam sweep past his sector and started counting. 3, 2, 1. Doors open. Hands locked on the release panel. Eyes on the GPS readout as each station reports green. Rotary launcher cycles. 5,000-pound weapons drop into the Iranian night. Tail kits deploying as 4 fins adjust 10 times per second. From 42,000 feet, 8 miles of free fall. 50 seconds of vertical descent, accelerating past the speed of sound as GPS corrections narrow the impact to within feet of the aim coordinates. A low vibration runs through the airframe as the last weapon clears the bay. Doors close, marble returns. The SA-6 pulsed 3 seconds after the doors sealed and caught nothing but a marble. Spy swept through 4 seconds after that. The destroyer's display showed nothing unusual. The Tor's thermal camera, if it was still watching, registered a brief infrared bloom already fading to background. 60 miles south, the SM-3 intercepted the Ahmad ballistic missile above the atmosphere. The tactical action officer never knew the bomber was there. In 50 seconds, 5,000 pounds of hardened steel is going to hit a reinforced concrete roof designed to survive it. Whether it survives this one is a different question. What just dropped out of that weapons bay is something the Air Force has never used from a B-2 in combat. If you look here at the GBU-72 Advanced 5K Penetrator, 5,000 pounds of hardened steel screaming toward a reinforced concrete roof. The standard bunker buster this campaign has been the GBU-31 with its 2,000-pound BLU-109 warhead, which punches through roughly 6 feet of reinforced concrete. Against mountain cave complexes, it worked beautifully. Against this coastal facility, hardened since the 1980s with overhead cover far beyond 6 feet, a Blue 109 would crater the surface while the missiles stored underground wouldn't feel a thing. The GBU-72 exists because the Air Force needed a bigger spike. It pairs a BLU-137B penetrating warhead with a modified JDAM tail kit, Joint Direct Attack Munition, the GPS guidance package that turns a dumb bomb into a precision weapon, replacing the laser-guided GBU-28 from 1991. The old GBU-28 needed a laser on the target, clear weather, line of sight, something holding the beam. The GBU-72 navigates by GPS, so rain, dust, and total darkness are irrelevant. The warhead weighs approximately 4,000 pounds, with roughly 1,000 pounds of PBXN-109 and AFX-757 explosive inside the casing, the same compounds used in the 30,000-pound massive ordnance penetrator, the largest conventional bomb in the American arsenal. Same chemistry, smaller package, $288,000 per round. The predecessor GBU-28 could punch through 150 feet of earth or 15 feet of reinforced concrete. The GBU-72's impact depth is classified, but the Air Force calls it substantially higher lethality. That is not a phrase they use for marginal improvements. Below the aircraft, the weapons are seconds from impact. The warhead casing, machined from a single piece of hardened steel with no welds, hits the roof at terminal velocity. All 4,000 pounds focused on a cross-section the diameter of a dinner plate. Tens of thousands of G's deceleration. The steel holds. The fuse reads sustained resistance through the roof. Concrete. Still concrete. Then a sudden drop. Void space. It triggers. That's the smart fuse earning its money. If you look here at the GB-72's guidance section, you'll see an electronic fuse the older GBU-28 never carried. One that reads the warhead's deceleration in real time as it grinds through the target. Sustained high resistance means still in concrete. Sudden drop means the warhead broke into a void, an open chamber. Think of it as a bomb that feels the difference between drilling through a wall and breaking into a room, and waits until it's inside the room to go off. Too early and you waste a $250,000 weapon in the concrete. Too late and you punch through the back wall. This one got it right. The explosive detonated inside a confined underground chamber where the overpressure has nowhere to go. It reflects off walls and ceilings, amplifying with each bounce until Norcruise missile propellant tanks rupture and warheads cook off in secondaries that white out the satellite feed for 2 full seconds. The ceiling pancakes onto mobile launchers. Tunnel access roads choke with rubble. The radar relays that fed targeting data to every Noor and Ghadir battery on Iran's southern coast go permanently dark. And with them, the ability to aim anything at the ships waiting 60 miles offshore. 60 miles south, the Aegis destroyer splashed the ballistic missile and never knew the bomber was there. 30 kilometers northwest, an SA-6 crew is still pulsing 5-second radar bursts into an empty corridor, hunting for an aircraft that's already turning for home over the Gulf of Oman. If you enjoyed this video, then go ahead and watch our other videos on Iran. Bye for now.